Well, here now, Pete Hegseth, Fox and Friends weekend co-host and Army veteran. Pete, great to have you with us here. I got to ask you about this Anthony Blinken conference that he gave. He gave us the numbers. We got the numbers finally, but I didn't get any confidence that he or the president know how things are going to unfold after August 31st. Your take on his explanation of what happens after that deadline?
You're right, Brian. I watched the whole thing, too. What it struck me is what a house of cards our entire premise is built upon, and that is the full faith and trust of Taliban 2.0 that somehow is pulling the wool over the eyes of this administration, that they will be even remotely cooperative in any such way after we have a presence on the ground. Part of the reason we are where we are is because we had House of Cards number one, which was the belief in an illegitimate, mostly illegitimate Afghan government and Afghan National Army that was built in our image and not prepared to take on the Taliban. This House of Cards is that when we leave, we're going to be relying on Taliban air, who's going to take out citizens that are still there, or more not more tragically, but more likely, Afghan allies and interpreters who are already being denied any opportunity to get on that airfield right now. My entire day has been consumed with desperation of Afghan allies and translators and families related to American citizens and American soldiers who can't find a way to get those people out, those folks have been beaten and robbed and turned away, and to rely on the Taliban's goodwill to do well by them. What you're going to get instead is bloodletting when our planes leave of all those allies. Tony Blinken knows that. He can't say anything else. And they've drawn their line on American citizens as the one metric they can kind of track and keep hold of. 1,500 is still a lot of people. Afghanistan is still a big country. One left behind is too many.
Pete, what strikes me here is it's not just that they're acknowledging the Taliban as a factor, but they are featuring repeatedly that all of this depends on the Taliban. At what point do you say we're going to neutralize that variable? We're not going to depend on this. We're going to take them out of the equation as much as possible. I'm not hearing anything about that, Pete. Where is that?
We can't, Brian, because they are the entire equation. They're not just the equation. I mean, they've wrote the test and they're grading the test. They are the ones who've dictated this Taliban timeline. So when the Taliban say, sure, we'll respect women, former officials, we'll take care of them, Afghan allies, they'll get a mulligan. We're believing them. And the fact that that's our premise is how dangerous and precarious this entire situation is. And the reason they're not bombing the gates or shooting missiles at the airfield is because this has all been on their terms. Why would they when they can have their cake and eat it too? Get us out of the country and block most of the people they want to keep behind from getting there.
So one of the other sources of supposed hope for us is that ISIS-K, which is presenting a terrorist threat, somehow doesn't get along with the Taliban. And somehow we're supposed to say, well, that's a source of hope for us as we rely on the Taliban. Pete, when the situation has changed like this, doesn't the Taliban look at ISIS-K and say, you know what? We've got a common interest here. Let's work together. I don't buy that they're not going to have some interest to take the U.S. interests and throw them out of the country indefinitely.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, eventually terrorists killing terrorists, I'm fine with that if they want to go at each other. But right now, if ISIS-K wanted to attempt to detonate a car bomb, and that's why gates have been closed so frequently, they could probably attempt to find a way to do so, and they have not. I don't know if that's the basis of an agreement or basis of the enemy of my enemy is my friend right now. And as a result, when the Americans leave, then we can have our own fight over the future of Afghanistan. The emergence of that terror group reminds us precisely why we were there, not that we should stay in perpetuity. I've been an advocate, like so many, for leaving. But leaving this way only creates opportunity for the cooperation you're alluding to, Brian, or unleashing a civil war where none of our allies benefit in that.
Pete, we're learning so much more about not only the equipment that we've abandoned in Afghanistan, but also the intelligence that's now been exposed. Put those two things together, Pete, equipment and intelligence, and tell me, what kind of head start does that give our enemies, terrorists in Afghanistan in terms of reconstituting?
It's a great point. Some have made the point that they're low on cash, and that is true. But the opium trade is the Taliban's -- trade. It's a narco state, effectively. They'll find a way to fund themselves. This is the most highly sophisticated equipped terrorist army in the world. When you look at the actual list of what they have, it's absolutely staggering. I mean, most countries in Western Europe would kill to have the type of weaponry and equipment that they have. And the most dangerous part of it, you mentioned, Brian, is the intelligence, are the biometric data sets, are the lists of the people that are there, and their understanding of how we operate. We're not in a shooting war right now because the Taliban has decided it's not in their interest. But they will turn those weapons on whomever they deem necessary, and they will have the support of the communist Chinese to fund and train and facilitate use of Black Hawks and heavy weaponry that they now have their hands on.
Pete, it feels like we've put the Taliban in the driver's seat and nobody is concerned about taking the wheel from them. Thanks for your insight today, sir. We appreciate it always.
Thanks, Brian.